Hazardous Materials Regulations, an overview. From the oil and natural gas used to heat our homes, to the chemicals we use to fertilize our crops, our modern lives rely upon the safe use of potentially hazardous materials. While these materials bring many benefits to our lives, they also bring the possibility of injury, illness, and even death. Because of the variety of risks posed by the transportation of hazardous materials, many people share the responsibility of managing this risk and ensuring the safety and health of communities and the surrounding environment. The transportation of hazardous materials involves handling, packaging, storing, and moving potentially dangerous substances, as well as responding to emergency situations when they arise. It also involves employees who design, manufacture, inspect, mark, repair, and test shipping containers used for transporting hazardous materials. With so many different moving pieces, the United States Department of Transportation has identified human error as a contributing factor to a majority of hazardous material incidents. Lack of knowledge regarding applicable regulations and work practices may lead to a number of human errors, including mishandling of hazardous materials, undeclared hazardous material shipments, ignorance of the presence of hazardous materials, failure to follow safety procedures, misunderstanding of roles and responsibilities during an emergency, and failure to respond effectively to an emergency. In the United States, the first effective laws relating to the transportation of dangerous goods date back to 1871. In November 1903, a freight car loaded with dynamite exploded in the yards of the Pennsylvania Railroad in Crestline, Ohio, injuring scores of people and setting fire to nearly 500 other freight cars. The force of the explosion derailed locomotives hundreds of yards away and blew a crater 40 feet deep into the ground. Then, in December 1917, a munitions ship blew up in the harbor of Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, resulting in 2,000 fatalities and 9,000 injuries. The Halifax explosion is the largest man-made accidental explosion in history. It flattened more than 1 square mile of the city and destroyed around 1,600 buildings, scattering debris over several miles. The devastating explosions at Crestline and Halifax, in addition to many other incidents involving hazardous materials, brought the need for more stringent regulation of hazardous materials in transit to the attention of the federal government. Finally, in 1975, the Hazardous Materials Transportation Act was signed into law, making the transportation of hazardous materials one of the most highly regulated industries, with stiff penalties for non-compliance. Today, decades later, the Crestline and Halifax explosions, as well as other similar incidents, such as the chlorine leak caused by a train crash in Graniteville, South Carolina in 2005, present the opportunity for both hazmat employers and employees to learn from past failures, identify gaps in their systems, and ensure compliance with federal regulations. Effective employee training programs can reduce the likelihood of human errors and create a safer environment for employers, employees, and the wider community. These programs reduce operating costs and losses from property damage while increasing productivity and profits.